3 Pistons. Again, if you're just turning on the association, the breaking news in the NBA on this Tuesday, the James Harden trade is official. Chris Haynes breaking that during the show. Harden to Cleveland, Darius Garland coming back to Los Angeles. So it'll be the Beard and Spida in the land, pairing up with the front court of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen and Darius Garland, 26-year-old, couple all-star appearances on his resume. Fresh start for him in Los Angeles, and the hope, of course, from LA standpoint, is that Garland will get healthy. But we know that James Harden is healthy, Rue, and he's been durable. And he wants to, one, secure his next contract, his next payday, and then two, opt with a contender, and he does that joining the Cavs in a wide-open Eastern Conference, underachieved up to this point.
Yeah.
This is a guy who they hope will aid their chances or their ascent back up the standings.
Yeah, the Cavaliers have lacked consistency this year, to say the least. You know, they need a little jump. Darius Garland's a guy that's been in and out of the lineup. And I guess they feel like they can, you know, they need something to get them over the hump. And I guess they feel like James is that guy. But, you know, I'll be anxious to see, you know, how it plays out. We all know what type of player James is and how he's been at 37 years old. He pretty much is who he is. You know, but I really want to see how him and Spida play together, being that Spida's younger and trying to make his way in this league as well.
So Cleveland making this move on the heels of acquiring Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder from Sacramento. In exchange, they moved Darius Garland, who was one of their core four, and DeAndre Hunter, who was their key acquisition last year ahead of the deadline, and Hunter helped carry them to the Eastern Conference Finals, or semifinals rather, where they were knocked out. And so they entered this year as Eastern Conference favorites and are trying to find that footing again. It is going to be, I'm with you, Real, 110%. Like, I'm just so fascinated for that first game.
Yeah.
In all likelihood, we would love to see that happen on Wednesday because the Cavs and Clippers play each other on Wednesday. Probably not going to happen. But you also, then, if we're talking about Cleveland trying to aid their postseason hopes and dreams, you do have to take into account some of the postseason struggles we have seen from James Harden in his career. Now, this is another new chapter that he is authoring and the latest trade request that he has made in his career. He has a chance to kind of, you know, write a different story when it comes to the postseason, but that is part of this trade too that we have to discuss.
It's definitely part of it. I think this is his last go at it. Well, not his last go, but he's making an effort to go out on his own and how he wants to. And I think at this point, you know, I think he'd have to come into the situation knowing what the team lacks and also trying to alleviate that going into the playoffs. So I don't project him having, you know, the kind of seasons he's had before in the playoffs. But, you know, also you have Spida, who's a person that's going to drive the force anyway. Like, this is Spida's team no matter what. James is going to do a lot of things to help this team. But at the end of the day, this team wants to keep Spida. So that's part of the reason why they're bringing in James in.
So we look at the career journey and timeline for James Harden. This is about to be his 6th team. And he, again, has requested a trade from the last 4, Houston, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and now the Clippers. Is it something that you feel will impact his legacy at all as a player?
I don't think so. I think one thing that he's continued to do is keep his numbers up. Numbers, at the end of the day, is what defines a player, unfortunately, in this league. But also, he's one of the most competitive, one of the most reliable players we've had in a long time. He's always there, always putting up numbers, and always available for his team. So one thing we know, he's going to be there and ready to play.
Chris, can I ask you a question? Are you working? If you're working,
go ahead. You got a question.
So, and this is, I don't want to put you in a spot where you feel like you're kind of speculating here, but this is the latest move for Cleveland as you sort of look into the future here. You mentioned what they have on the horizon with Donovan Mitchell and that contract. It's also hard to not look to this summer. Whatever happens the rest of this season with Cleveland, There is a particular player with ties to Cleveland that could be around to join this fray as well. I think everybody knows who I'm talking about. That'd be LeBron James. Is this in your mind at all, or is it just more kind of just floating around on basketball Twitter and in and amongst fans?
No, I think I think if you're looking at this summer, obviously LeBron James is going to be a free agent. This is his 23rd season. Next season will be his 24th. The end has to come at some point. I don't know that I see him finishing his career as a Los Angeles Laker. I don't know that. The Lakers are going in a different direction. Luka Doncic has established himself as a franchise player moving forward. I think it's more that you're quite within reason to suggest or assume that the Cleveland Cavaliers might be players for LeBron James to end his career. So there's nothing concrete.
Right. You're not. I'm not. Again, you're not reporting. I'm just using more your opinion as a basketball fan.
Definitely, that's something we'll have to consider moving forward, and I think that's a legitimate case.
Okay. Rudy, you have anything to say, or should we go to break? Should we go to break, or do you? Yeah, we're gonna step aside
for the most of the season. And for more reaction to this blockbuster trade, we bring in CBS Sports NBA writer Sam Quinn. And Sam, first off, didn't see this happening whatsoever for a long time, but there are tricklings about it. What's your first thought seeing that James Harden is going to Cleveland for Darius Garland?
My first thought is that the Cavs were crazy, and then as I sat with it for the last day or so, it started to come into focus for me a little bit more. I think what this tells us about Darius Garland is that Cleveland just flat out didn't trust him to stay healthy. Last season was the first time in his entire career that he'd played 70 games. Of course, the toe injury really cost him in the postseason. He wasn't the same guy. He didn't play well earlier this season. He'd been in and out of the lineup with the toe injury. Started to play a little bit better, but he's now been out the last couple of weeks. I think at the end of the day, Cleveland just decided we can't trust him to stay on the floor. And if we're paying him max money, he's extension eligible in the offseason, that just isn't a tenable situation for us. We have a super max deal for Donovan Mitchell coming in the offseason, or rather in the 2027 offseason. We just signed Evan Mobley to a new max deal. We can't afford to keep somebody like this if he's not going to be on the floor. James Harden, for all of his foibles, despite his age, does tend to be durable. So I think the logic here for Cleveland is that they're getting somebody who can keep them in the mix this year. Small guards, obviously we saw this with Trae Young, not generating the same trade returns that they used to. So they probably looked at this and said, we could maybe trade for a bad contract and get some picks back that way, or we can get somebody who can keep us afloat, keep us in the championship picture. That's what they did. And I mean, look, it's a rare sort of trade where you trade for somebody a decade older than your guy. When you look at it through that narrow lens, I think it does make a little bit of sense.
Okay, so you think it makes a little bit of sense. How about on the floor, right? With Donovan Mitchell, you know what I'm saying? He needs more production. Obviously, with Darius Garland being unreliable, having James Harden in that lineup, running the offense to a degree that should alleviate some of the pressure. But what do you think about the fit with Mitchell and Harden specifically?
I like it. Donovan Mitchell has always been his best as a shooting guard, right? Sometimes in the NBA, when you're a high-usage scorer like Mitchell is, you're kind of pigeonholed into that primary ball handler role. You're running an offense. I think he's better when he plays next to another playmaker, and James Harden is obviously a Hall of Fame playmaker. The bigs in Cleveland, Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, they're never going to have easier shots than they will with James Harden. He's going to make them a lot better. Cleveland's bench offense, when Donovan Mitchell was on the bench, was bad for most of this year. Harden is going to be able to keep them afloat. They should be able to make it through 48 minutes in every game, always having an all-star level shot creator on the floor. Donovan Mitchell isn't going to have to carry that huge burden by himself anymore. There's a ton of shooting. James Harden has always thrived with a lob threat big and a lot of shooting around him. He'll have both in Cleveland. The fit offensively is very good, and defensively, he's replacing someone in Darius Garland who's also not a great defender. Harden at least is a lot bigger. He's got those quick hands. He generates deflections, generates turnovers. I think this makes Cleveland a better team this season.
Do you think it makes them so much better that they could compete for an NBA championship, given how the East is? I mean, I know the Pistons, they're the 1 seed right now, but do you feel like this is enough to get them over that hump?
There is no team in the Eastern Conference right now that genuinely scares me. The Pistons added Kevin Huerter today, and that's helpful. I don't know if they're going to be able to score enough in the playoffs to say they're a clear Eastern Conference favorite. The Knicks have been up and down all season. The Celtics, obviously, without Jason Tatum at full strength, I don't know if I trust that supporting cast. You go up and down the East, and unless a Giannis trade happens that really drastically changes the landscape, there's not that one elite team. And I think part of the motivation for Cleveland doing this and putting so many chips into this year and next year with the 36-year-old Harden was they saw that opportunity as well. They're looking at this and saying, we have a chance when Boston isn't itself, when Indiana isn't itself. The Pacers destroyed them last year. The Pacers aren't in the mix this year. I think they looked at that and said, let's really go for it this year and next. And then after that, when Harden's contract expires in 2027, then we'll take a look at the longer term and kind of figure out what comes next. But they think they have a chance to win the championship. You don't trade for a 36-year-old James Harden unless you do.
Yeah, so you think that it's more likely, or you think it's likely that they might give him that extension, that deal that he wants, that the Clippers probably weren't going to give it to him because, as most reasonable people, like, look, you're 36 years old, yeah, you're playing good ball, but we're not sure how much longer you're going to be able to do this and if it's going to end in a championship for the Clippers.
Yeah, I think the Clippers, they've been really earmarking cap space in 2027. That's when Giannis Antetokounmpo, well, if he doesn't extend, will be a free agent. Nikola Jokic as well. A number of other high-profile players. I think they've been planning to rebuild their team at that point. James Harden also only has a partial guarantee on his contract for next season. It's a mutual option, but if he picks up his player option, he can get waived at only $13 million. I think at the very least, Cleveland's plan is to pick him up next season, keep him at that $40 million or so cap figure. I don't know if they're going to extend him beyond that, but they can play that by ear. And if you look at the alternative with Darius Garland, somebody at his age is going to expect an extension that's going to take him, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. I think it's easier to play it year to year with James Harden. With the Clippers, that's what he'd done. He hadn't been signing long contracts. He'd been re-signing in the offseason. I think he should at least be able to get paid next season. And then after that, we'll see where he is. Because, when you're 37, 38, it's just hard to predict what your performance is going to look like.
It's hard to predict what your performance is going to look like, and it's really hard to predict, which team James Harden is going to be on, right, from year to year. Where it's like, okay, I don't like the situation, I need to get out. Don't like that situation, need to get out. And he's seemingly getting everything he wants. Of course, he's going to want another extension from the Cavaliers, but we'll get to that in a little bit. For Darius Garland and the Clippers, does this really signal the future of the team in terms of having a rebuild? We're not sure about Kawhi Leonard and how much longer he has. Injuries have always been an issue, even though he's been great when healthy. Where are the Clippers going with this move?
Yeah, I think this is a minor miracle for the Clippers, frankly. They trade a 36-year-old for a 26-year-old when they're the oldest team in the league. Look, I know they've been playing very, very well lately. They sort of fought their way back into the playoff picture, but nobody had any illusions about this. They weren't winning the championship this year. They were going to be a play-in team, and they were probably, if they got into the playoffs, going to get smacked around in the first round by the Thunder or the Nuggets, and that was going to be that. They had no long-term direction. They were built around two All-Stars in their mid-30s. They had to do something to give themselves a long-term direction. Darius Garland is not, Victor Wembanyama.
Right.
He's not Luka Doncic, but he's an all-star who's 26. If you can get him re-signed, you get Ivica Zubac there as your long-term center. Those are at least two building block players that might not be able to be the best player on a championship caliber team, but who could be building blocks for you for whatever comes next. And then, look, you're Los Angeles. You're a very attractive recruiting market. Players tend to want to live in Los Angeles. So could you then use Garland and Zubac, stay afloat for a few years, and then in a few years say, hey, star free agent wing X, star defensive player Y, whoever it is, don't you want to come play with Darius Garland? Don't you want to come play with Zubac? Don't you want to live in LA? I think that's the plan for the Clippers. I don't know that that was possible without getting a player as good and as young as Darius Garland.
All right, so 2 new chapters for the Cavaliers and the Clippers. Cavaliers getting James Harden and the Clippers going with Darius Garland. Sam Quinn, always appreciate the insight, man. Take care. So the Beard is the second all-time career point scorer without a title, only trailing Karl Malone, who's put up 36,928. James Harden, now a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Unreal.
Actually, she was just a workaholic. You were made to take time off. We were made to save you time with easy-to-book packaging.
Landale and Vince Williams Jr. to Utah in the deal. The Grizzlies are getting 2025 first-round pick Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, and George Niang. But the real prize is the package of 3 first-rounders, giving the Grizzlies a hefty 13 first-round selections over the next 7 seasons. And the Boston Celtics have acquired center Nikola Vucevic in a trade with the Chicago Bulls, adding some much-needed help to their front court. According to ESPN, the Celtics will send guard Anthony Simons and a second-round pick to Chicago. The move will also save Boston more than $20 million in luxury tax payments. Bulls not done there, though. Chicago, Minnesota, and Detroit all agreed to a multi-team deal that sends Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley to the Bulls, and Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric to the Pistons. That's according to ESPN. The Pistons also receive a 2026 first-round protected swap from Minnesota. While the T-Wolves don't receive a player back in the deal, they do gain some financial flexibility as they continue to pursue Giannis Antetokounmpo. From the NBA, the Clippers are trading James Harden to the Cavaliers for Darius Garland. According to ESPN, Los Angeles is also receiving a second-round pick in the deal. The trade ends Harden's sometimes turbulent 3-season stint with the Clippers and pairs him up with star guard Donovan Mitchell on the Cavs. While Garland was an all-star last year, like Harden, has been dealing with toe injuries this season and just has not been able to stay healthy.